Thanks, Saurav. So I'll just give a brief intro about Ramraj and JK. Ramraj and JK have had the benefit of education from premier institutions in India and the opportunity to interact and learn from inspiring teachers and multifaceted co-students. They've been through satisfying corporate careers, entrepreneurial ventures, and social organizations where they grew into leadership roles and rode the waves of both challenges and opportunities while their learning never stopped. They continue to be a part of some of these organizations. Growing up in families where parents, uncles, aunts, siblings, and cousins were closely knit, they have imbibed the value of relationships, of giving and receiving with grace. The treasure they have amassed over the years is an extended network of true friends built from their student days as well as from their business and social circles. They are believers in the wealth of knowledge and wisdom handed down from the ages, and they have consciously exposed themselves to this content from renowned teachers, source documents, towards finding answers and approaches to lead a meaningful life. While they are practitioners, they continue to be students and seekers of the Indic way, striving to reach potential to continuously perform and achieve, to do their best in any situation and face life's ups and downs with equanimity, to care for the well-being of people and nurture relationships of value by reducing and eliminating negativities, building and leveraging positivities, and thereby engage with life with energy, enthusiasm, fulfillment, and happiness. The various sessions of the Indic Way highlight their learnings and practices, aspects that they have found to be of value for themselves in getting ready for life. Welcome, Ramraj and JK. Thank you.
Thanks, Manu.
Thanks, Manu. Thanks for those very gracious words of introduction. Delighted to connect with all of you once again. This is, like Saurav shared with you, the fifth in the Indic series. Ram and I have always discussed amongst ourselves. We don't know whether you guys enjoy this or not, but we enjoy putting this together and sharing whatever we put together with all of you. Since I'm not really able to see each one of you, I'm hoping you're all as delighted as we are. Ram, any intro?
No, JK, over to you.
Okay. So if you all, some of you, I'm sure, have been in this journey along with us right from series 1. Our first series was called the Indic Way. Then we did a series which we called the Indic Gym. We started to address a lot more of how to do things. The third was the Indic Enterprise, which was focused on building our businesses, but the Indic Way influencing how and what we do. The fourth was the Power series, which we completed, I think, by February or so. And this one, a little different in the manner in which we wish to take all of you through various content, but objective across all the 5 series are very similar. And the objective, you all remember the Power series had a byline called Readiness for Life. And all readiness, even in the earlier series, and what we have now put down as the byline towards success and joy, always have both the components. It's about performance, it's about achievement. And while we do that, how we are able to make sure that it is joyous in the manner and in our journey. So we are on to becoming a superior person. And as we go through different sessions, our own understanding of that title and that qualification that we are giving to each one of ourselves to say superior, and who is that superior person will emerge as we move through different aspects in this series. But I just want to give you a little intro to say the superior is not not really referring to some, exalted people like Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa or many who be a little better and a little better and a little better. And therefore, that superior nature is in comparison to myself and not necessarily in comparison to anybody else around me. And in putting together this series, we have taken a slightly different route, which is we believe that a lot of things that we have achieved so far or understood so far, there is a power in just being ordinary people and in what we have acquired from ordinary people. So every session in this series, inputs will be broken up into 3 modules. The first being the power of ordinariness, and from that what we can get. The second we call learning from the Lilliputians, and we will get in there. I will present a little more on what it is. But again, that's a little twist to say we can learn from many of the smaller people. And the third module will take us a little more towards becoming superior. Therefore, what is it that we need to either let go or acquire? And so every session will consist of these 3 modules. Ram?
So thanks, JK. One of the things we keep emphasizing every time is this is about ourselves. It's about self-improvement. How do we become better and better to meet this objective which JK has put here in the headline towards success and joy? It's not success versus joy, it is success and joy. And how can we continuously be improving? And therefore, are there ways in which we can observe and learn from things happening around us? We put in a lot of effort to go learn from teachers, masters, and from very clearly identified superior people, giants. But there are continuous lessons we can learn, and a little progress each day adds up to a lot of self-improvement, big results. And that is really the focus here. How do we become better towards meeting our potential? How do we be successful and joyful? And how can we learn? Where can we learn from? And how do we keep progressing? That's really the objective of these sessions. Back to you, JK.
So if we look at session 1, even in our intro note that we sent out, we raised these questions to say, hey, you know what? Why do people listen to us? Why do people follow us? Why do people sometimes respect us? And it's certainly not because we are the strongest, or we are the smartest, or we are the richest, or we are the most beautiful, or the most talented. There's something else. And therefore, that something else, that aspect, we refer to that as superior aspect. And whether it surfaces all the time, it surfaces only on one occasion, that's not as important as the fact that these superior aspects are very much part of us. And we want to understand it a little more, and we want to nourish that a little more. And if you look at the title of this session, I wish to draw your attention that it is deliberate that we have said superior via greatness, which is struck off, and we have replaced that with ordinariness. And this is going to be the sort of twist right through the series, that so much of what we can understand, learn, and practice is completely different from many aspects which we might have covered, or the way we would have looked at various aspects so far. So if you look at the series contents, I don't want to run through this more, but to just say a lot of this is in store in the manner in which we're going to take you through different ways of moving towards becoming that superior person. And we will straight away deep dive more into session 1. Ram?
Nothing.
Okay. So let's get into the first aspect and the first module in every session, which we are referring to as the power of ordinaries. So whenever we talk of good old days, and I think it's valid for all of us here, whenever we say good old days, our mind goes back to our younger days and the great times that we had, brings us smile, makes us feel happy. But it was all small things, small activities, small achievements, friends from ordinary backgrounds. We probably were in a very small flat or an accommodation, shared facilities, no luxuries. For some of us from an era, even before the TV, we'll always keep talking, no TV, no this, but I'm sure there are many of you here who are the pre-cell phone era, equally having been in aspects where it was just ordinary aspects, ordinary backgrounds, small accommodations, but it brings a smile, makes us feel happy. So I just want to pause and place this with you. And if anyone has a comment with this question, is there something special in the ordinary? And before you respond, Ram, any thoughts which you want to add to say, what is this so special, even though they were all small things and very little of luxuries, no luxury, no nothing, but good old days.
I know. I don't know if we are making it up or not, but every time we think of our old days or childhood, how we played with marbles and tops and gilli danda, all of that, very little Legos and video toys or anything. It was stuff that many times we made ourselves and played with it. Yet, it seemed to have been extraordinary fun. And why it was extraordinary fun? Why do we remember it so fondly? Is it because of what? And I think we will give what we think, but love to hear what some of you think and your response.
Yes, Saurav, if you could unmute anybody. Yeah, Ashok raise his hand. Is there something special in the audience?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ashok, please.
Okay, so I mean, this is something, I have thought many times, and I think most of us in our interactions have talked about the good old days. I have just two things to flag, JK. First, let's take a simple example. Let us say AC or fridge or whatever. When we reminisce about not having had an AC and it wasn't such bad fun after all, it's so difficult, and today, and so on and so forth, is there a relevance to the fact that today I have an AC? And that is why I'm able to sort of look back and say it didn't matter. Would I take the same view if even today I could not afford an AC? Would I then look back and take the same view about the good old days? That is one of the things that bothers me. The second aspect that often bothers me is, if those were the good old days, are we implying that we worked hard to make them bad current days? I mean, if childhood was very good and that's what you thought in college, and today you're looking back at college and saying that was also very good, have we consciously moved away from a good place to a bad place in search of something which was something that you should not have done in the first place at all? Okay, I don't know if I've made sense, but it's something that's always bothered me, JK. That's all I have to say.
No, Ashok, I'm so happy you raised this, because what Ram and I discussed is, while we move through these sessions and while we share and understand a lot more about what we want to present through this particular series. We want to say, can good old days, can it be good present days? It's all about that, yes, even though we didn't have many things we seem to have enjoyed, now we have many things. If we have many things and we are enjoying, great that we have many things. But if we have many things and we are not enjoying, then there is an aspect that we wish to say, how to make sure and what is that approach and what are those aspects where it is as much Ashok good present days. Ram?
It is not that today, if you ask me to sleep without an AC in this heat, I will find it tough. Going sleeping on the terrace as we did those days when it was hot, summer nights, we would go sleep up on the terrace and feel damn good about it. It was an adventure and watch the stars and all of that. Today, I think that's going to be tough and I need my AC. But when I think back as to why I still think of it as something that was enjoyable, maybe it is we learned to do with less. And we were happy with what we had. We just made, I remember using that coconut ole and you make a bat out of it. And with the leaves, you make a ball out of it. And we played with that something. We just made it and you would get together and have good time. So I think the reference is more, how did we enjoy with less? And it looks like we need to have more to have similar enjoyment. Today, same person. Can I go in a bus like I used to do so often, not because of COVID, but otherwise, and still enjoy it? I don't know. And here, the idea is for us to just reflect, share our views like you just did, and have everybody come in and give a different viewpoint or agree or whatever. But it is to discuss and debate, why do we think we were so happy then? Is there something that causes? Is it I felt that I was able to make good with less? And I have lost that ability today. Therefore, I look back and feel happy about the old.
Thanks, Ram. So we want to park this thought. And
No,
we want to now take a,
sorry, I want to come in. I'm Sridhar. My name is Sridhar. Sridhar Ganesh is my full name. I have a very different take on this. Very, very different take. May sound deeply philosophical, deeply something else. I don't know. But I'll say it as it comes to me. I think human beings are wired to something called nostalgia. It brings back a pleasant mental state. So whenever you remember the past, it brings back something which you cherish. And therefore, you want to remember that. And this need not be necessarily the good old days. It can be in relation to today, something that you experienced 5 years ago. And what is today, 10 years hence, if we live that long, will also be nostalgic. So it's one, related to a time dimension. Two, it is an inherent human nature to look back at the past, and because it brings a certain positivity to your mental health. I think there are, it is not necessary that you need not have had an AC when you were young. Even if you had an AC and you had a good time, even then you will remember that how our ACs conked out in Calcutta, how the power cuts happened, all that will happen because it is a source of mental health, mental strength, mental positivity. So that's my take in terms of why we remember the past. It is relative. It's not as if you don't remember. I remember my first job. in GKW. It was not very pleasant, but I remember it very fondly because I learned a lot there. I had a multiple routes to take. I used to go in a company bus. Sometimes it would stop. I'd take a rickshaw to go to a ferry point. From a ferry, I would cross the river, and then I come back into a public bus and come home. It's happened. Now, if you ask me at that point in time, did you like it? No, I didn't. It was sheer agony. But when I look back, it sends a source of strength to me to say, look, I went through that experience. It made me what I am today. So I think nostalgia is my take on this.
See the very valid inputs. But the thought we want us to keep in mind that is there something special in the ordinary? And is there something superior in the ordinary? And we wish to pick up a few things as we move along. So right through those journeys, we have been meeting and interacting with ordinary people. I am referring to as ordinary more to say that most of them, even if all of us share, may not be public figures. They are people who we have met, not that they didn't have great abilities, just referring to that as not necessarily public figures well known by everybody. So in our families, in our school, in our profession, in society, everywhere, our circle of friends. While we did that, anybody who stood up, anybody who made an impact, even if it was on one occasion. So if anybody wishes to share a thought to say, hey, yes, but one particular person or one particular incident or one something, though ordinary people. Anybody who would like to share something with us?
JK, maybe I'll start.
Okay, huh?
Start, JK.
Pardon?
Shall I?
No.
Okay.
As we move along, I'm sure it'll prod people.
Yeah, let's see.
Some
I'm sure we get more.
If you want them to share. Okay, this didn't have the animation, but I'll run through this. Ram, maybe you can start with this Hados Road function, and then I will pitch it with what it is.
Yeah, this is something I had spoken to JK. We had a family function. I think Diwali or something. Lunch, we decided as a family we'll all get together. About 40, 50 people at somebody's house. A shamiana had been put up on the terrace. The contractor had come and dumped the tables and chairs for lunch under the shamiana. He had not set up anything and pushed off. People were busy in the kitchen. There were a couple of people helping out. But most of us were on the terrace and cursing the contractor, saying, what kind of a fellow? Why has he dumped this here? He should have put it. Who's got the number? Let's call the fellow back. Let him set this up. Everybody was just complaining that the table and chair. One cousin walked in and went straight. He saw he was late. He had just walked in. He just tapped two youngsters who were there, teenagers, just tapped them on the shoulder, walked up to these tables that were all piled up, hold one end, and in 10 minutes had set up everything. No complaining, no talking, just got, and the kids all jumped in. Moment there was a role model, there were enough people to step up and do. There were still 3, 4 standing around and complaining and saying, what kind of a contractor. But these young people, seeing this guy, just stepped up and just set up the table, chairs, got some cloth, wiped it, and set the leaves, and everybody was ready for lunch. What is the difference? And to me, taking responsibility instead of complaining and just getting things done was something. And this guy was no Mahatma Gandhi or anybody. He's just one of us. But just step in, no complaint, take responsibility. I thought was a great lesson.
Thanks, Ram. I want to share with you an experience that I had in the younger days. I might have been 14, 15. Went with my uncle and some of my cousins to Bombay those days, and stayed with another uncle of mine who was in that Dadar Matunga area, more or less on that main road overlooking that main highway. Apartment, which was I think on the 5th or 6th floor. And it was getting close to monsoon time. We had gone there in the summer. It started to rain, and I remember one day heavy rain. And when we were looking out of the window, we saw very few people on the road, and one lady not of great circumstances with two very young children, sort of getting drenched, trying to take some shelter under some of the covers at a shop, struggling, etc. While we were all watching, we were doing something, I found my uncle had taken a loaf of modern bread, and he dug into the fridge, maybe took out whatever jam bottle was there, and he went out with an umbrella. And as we were watching from the window, we saw him come out of the building, cross the road, go on to the other side. He didn't know any Hindi. Yeah, he had come along with us from Madras of those days. He just went there. I don't know what he said, but we could see him hand over that bottle, say something. He raised his hand, didn't say anything. And while walking back with his umbrella, I don't know what struck him. He took the umbrella, gave that umbrella to that lady, and then walked back in the rain, walked through the building, and came up to the flat. Now, when he came up to the flat, all the rest of the members of the family had different comments to offer. No, you shouldn't be doing this. No, you shouldn't encourage this. You're not going to do this every day. We can't take care of everybody. And you gave away the umbrella. What will we do? Something, lots of discussions. He didn't say anything. Neither did he defend himself. Nothing. To me, it left a mark which I still carry, which I'm sharing with you to say, therefore, if there's something you can do, you please do it. That's it. And I found in both what Ram shared, that therefore in ordinary people, there is some superior aspect. It may surface one time, it may surface on occasions, maybe it doesn't surface all the time, but still there is superior aspects which we come across in ordinary people. And I want to share with Joshua Bell's story. All of you and many of you would have heard it, but I still wish to repeat it more for the context. It's an experiment which Washington Post did, where Joshua Bell, who is one of the greatest violinists, they made him stand at 8 o'clock in front of Washington, D.C. metro station, and on his violin, which I believe was some $3-4 million per violin, he was playing. Nobody paused to listen. People were so rushed going to their offices that they didn't listen to Joshua Bell, for whom people had paid an average of $150 just the previous weekend in Boston. And the experiment was only to establish that in ordinary environments, in ordinary situations, we do not expect extraordinary things. And the entire story ends with that one-liner, which I always held in mind. How many such things are we missing out? How many things are we missing out which are gems, but they may be in an ordinary environment?
I think really that message is what is the underlying theme of what we are saying. That in an extraordinary environment, we go to a seminar, etc., TED Talk, we know how to pick up some essence. But that is not continuous improvement. Every opportunity, every interaction, we have an opportunity to watch others and learn. If we have that antenna out, that sensitivity there, that we can learn from every incident, every opportunity, every interaction, that open to observation and learning. And we don't need to wait for a special occasion only for our learning, not in a classroom, not at a seminar. Every day, every opportunity is potential learning for betterment in our own behavior to reaching our own potential. Thanks, JK.
Thanks, Ram. So we are saying there are superior aspects in ordinary people and superior aspects in us. And as we move into that last module where we identify what is this superior, then we have an opportunity to hone those and build ourselves towards success and joy. So we said we should not just move away, but we should, all of us, try and say, is there something ordinary that I can do? And by doing that ordinary, is there something that I can learn? We want to come up with 10 ordinary things to do, announce one every session. Like Ram said, we first thought we will say, hey, take a ride in a bus and then let us know what it is. I will share with all of you later. In a bus journey, what is it that I saw and learned? Not now, but when that particular activity comes up. But in a COVID situation, we said we won't do that. But can we locate and talk on the phone to a distant relative or a less fortunate member of your family or a person from your old neighborhood? And if you can participate in that conversation without judgment, you may pick up something important. I would urge all of us to give it a shot. And if some of you think that there was something interesting, you could share it during the next session. Okay, let's move to the next module, which we call Learning from the Lilliputians. For those of you who may not be familiar, we are taking this from the Gulliver's Travels. I think maybe an 18th century, early 19th century sort of a novel. And in which Gulliver travels to, and because he gets shipwrecked, he reaches this island called Lilliput, where people of Lilliput are only 6 inches tall. And then it's all about his experiences at Lilliput. Those 6 inches tall, they had that same ability, aptitudes, great engineering skills, and their size did not come in the way of what they could do. And we're just therefore taking from that term to say, learning from the Lilliputians, so normally and at most occasions, we are more conditioned to learning from the giants.
So I was just, I think all of us have heard this story of a little boy on a beach where a lot of fish had been washed ashore. They were still, trembling on the water, not yet dead on the sand, not yet dead. And this little boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, was picking up one fish and running and throwing it back into the water. And there was this cynical adult watching this little fellow running, trying to save one fish at a time, and laughing at him, saying, "Look at the whole beach, there are thousands here. And what are you doing picking up one?" And that is when the little boy said, and we've heard this, I think, where he said, as he carried the little fish to the water, he said, it made a difference to this one fish. And that lesson, that we don't, any little thing that we do can help, was a great lesson to pick up. That we don't need to wait for some mega moment to help people, that everything. We had this last time, we had this during the first wave, we heard that some of these people were left behind, migrants, and we needed to help. And a few people got together and gave them some food. Some people gave them, something to take back home when they left. Small little things, nothing mega, to make a difference. Every little thing we can learn. That little boy taught that even small actions can make a difference, a mega difference to that one little fish. It was its life. So that was a lesson from a Lilliput.
So all are biased to learning from the giants. We want to reverse that. Nice statement. I saw history, although sometimes made up of the few acts of the great, is more often shaped by the many acts of the small. And we continuously in this series want to bring the focus to what we can pick up, and therefore the superior aspects in the smaller people and learnings from the acts of the smaller people. So the Lilliputians we are referring to, in general, to people whom we won't recognize by name. They are not the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs and the Ambanis and the Tatas and the Birlas of the world. These are people whom we won't recognize. I shared with all of you earlier some stories of Mariamma and stuff like that. We're going to revisit all of that, but it's people whom we won't recognize by name. Anonymous authors, but great wisdom, valuable lessons for us. And these are not moral aspects. These are valuable lessons, whether it's in business or in personal life. And it is that which makes them stand out, because they are valid as a gem which you may hear from Bill Gates or you may read in the Harvard Business Review. And as valid, as important, but it could have come from Mariamma, or it could come, like Ram said, from that little boy on the beach. So Lilliputians are people who you won't recognize by name, anonymous authors, but great wisdom and valuable lessons. So how much of your learning has happened from the Lilliputians and how much from the giants? If there's somebody here who would like to come and share something with us, please do share towards this question. How much of your learning has happened from Lilliputians and how much from giants? Saurav, you may unmute anybody.
I can't see anybody.
JK Viren.
Virendra Mathur. Yeah, Mathur. Viren. Yeah.
Viren. So I think in my little experience in life, most of the learning has happened through Lilliputians, because there is a lot of momentary inspiration that we can get from giants like, Gandhiji or whatever. But if we see our school teachers, our parents, our friends, our neighbors, people who come home, domestic help, who would have gone out of the way, and there's so much to learn from them. So in my experience, a lot of little things which can lead to great, inspiration and great things ahead in life.
Thanks, Viren. So if there's anybody else who wishes to share.
Yeah. I recently happened to read some of the WhatsApp follow-ups where one common person who sold his Innova vehicle and bought oxygen cylinders to give to the common people. That is very simple. He is nobody, and he could. Why should he sell his car in order to support somebody? Is something which is very, very simple thing. But I don't think anybody would have happened to. I would have sold a car, and that's something which is extraordinary these days.
Thank you. Amazing. So again, we want to leave with this thought that so much of our learning has happened from Lilliputians, and therefore,
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Somebody wants to share something?
Yes, myself Nisha from Chennai, Dr. Nisha from Chennai. To add on
Yes.
what sir has told before, that somebody has sold their car and offered oxygen cylinders. Even the same kind of news I also heard today. A couple from South Tamil Nadu, they also mortgaged their jewelries and they bought this table fans to the COVID patients, because where ACs, air conditions are not allowed inside the hospital. So they were suffocated with the air ventilation. So they they mortgaged their jewelry and they have given their money for a hospital to buy the this fans, table fans. So these are all again learning.
Am I audible? Can I?
Hello. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Am I audible? Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is a great topic that we are talking about Lilliputians and giants. Now, I have a story that I can share. It's actually a real story of two old people. A couple who are in a place which is quite interior to Tamil Nadu. And some people would have heard this story, but I'm trying to just put it across for perspective. And these two people have been selling idlis for the last 40 years, and they are selling it for just 2 rupees, and they have never changed the price. Now they were part of a discussion in a TV show, and the other side of the uh, uh, audience was putting pressure on these two people to increase the price because they have to take care of their future life, their sickness and wealth creation and so many other things. And these two couples were steadfast that we don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. We just need to sell it at 2 rupees because we know that there are millions of people who can't buy or sustain life even for 2 rupees, and we want to help them. And food is a very, very important thing. And when the other side asks them, what is your main objective? Why you are doing this? What would happen if something happens to you? Who would take care of you? And this statement, which I'm going to say, what they said is just moved me. Is that the old lady, 60 plus, she said, we don't want anybody to come to us. We know what we are doing. We will get people when we want, even if we don't want. So we trust people who we serve. We trust people, even though they are customers, we trust them, and because they will come to us when we are in need. We don't have to go and fish for people. And this example, although it's a long story, but I've cut it short. This example shows that however much you push such people, the Lilliputians, they will still hold on to their fort and say that this is what we are supposed to be doing on this earth, and we will keep doing it, come what may, and we will continue doing it for the sake of the society. However, the society thinks about us, whether we are fools or we don't know what we are doing, but we still do because they know the purpose for which they have come to this earth. So I wanted to share this story, and the case of Lilliputians actually highlights, according to me, in this particular story. Thank you.
Amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. And it is acts like these.
Hi.
Who's this? Next. I'm sorry, somebody wishes to.
Deepak, you are wanting to say something, or you?
Deepak.
Just wanted to say something. This is Deepak
Yes,
Chodia. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So, just maybe taking a step back. So what we have been understanding is looking at ordinary people or Lilliputians and understanding that. I think one key criteria is an observation which we need to do, because every individual is different and every individual have certain strengths and certain kind of quality which we can try to embed in ourselves to make a better person. So I've been actually doing that in terms of observing ordinary people. Just to give a kind of a quote and illustration from my life. Uh, this what, like 15 years back, when we used to travel in train for like so I currently based out of Chennai, but my native is in Rajasthan, so I used to travel in train for like 36-38 hours. So we used to meet a lot of ordinary people, and every individual will have a certain distinct character which you can take. Certain people will be very calm and they will not get hurried in their decision, or certain people will be like look different. When you talk to them, you kind of get a kind of a sense what kind of person they are. I have also met few people who are like traveling on a daily basis, doing selling on the trains, and you learn the marketing skills from them. How do they market at a different customer almost all the time? So it's more like keen observation which you need to have, and that will only help you to become a better person going forward.
Amazing input, Deepak. These are the sorts of things. So I want to say, Deepak has brought in a perspective which adds to some of the things with others shared. There are acts of generosity which we have seen. There are acts of generosity and kindness that is certainly inspiring, and that comes from Lilliputians, and that comes from people who are not expecting, looking for anything. That they're doing that. But that is only one side of what we are referring to as the learning and the superior aspect. What Deepak shared, these are also other things. Like he said, vendors on the train, how they're able to judge and evaluate their customers and move towards whatever are their sales targets which they have set for themselves. It is learnings like these also which are so important and valuable. Thank you, Deepak, for bringing up that perspective. So we are going to continue this in every session, and as an opportunity for more of you to share anecdotes which you yourself have experienced. So if I move to one which I wish to share, it was at Tenambat signal, morning, maybe about 8:30. I was driving in my car, coming back from my tennis, and my car had a puncture. It had a puncture. And though, of course, I do know how to change a punctured wheel, we all have now moved into this luxury. So I somehow moved the car closer to the pavement and called my driver and said, you please come, the car has a puncture. So he said, within 10 minutes I'll be there. Okay, the 10 minutes was not really 10 minutes, as people really don't mean 10 minutes. It took him nearly 30 minutes to reach Tenambat signal from wherever he was. So for 30 minutes, I was standing at Tenambat signal just watching what was happening around me. And I saw these two little girls. Okay. They were earlier maybe only begging for money, but nowadays they've all learned that they can take some small article, one ballpoint pen or some flower or one notebook, etc., and carry them around and try and get 10 rupees for that ballpoint pen rather than just ask for money. And these two little girls, they must have been maybe 10 years old and 8 years old, not going to school, but here at Tenambat signal. Signal turns to red. These two girls are there, moving from car to two-wheeler with some ball pen or something which they were selling. I think they get $10 because that is the easiest thing for people to give. And with a sad face, with that sad face to say, I need money, help me, and therefore, okay, take something. Somebody would take, most people won't take, and they were just moving. And when the signal turned to green, that is when I saw this amazing aspect. Because normally we are in the car or in the two-wheeler, you only see this happening when the signal turns green, we are off. And we don't later observe what really happened. But because I was there for half an hour, I saw these two girls go to a small culvert close by. Whatever money they collected, they gave to an elder sister who was sitting there. And they started playing with two stones, throwing it up, catching it, doing whatever little girls do, happy. And in 2 minutes, the signal had again changed back to red. They left their stones where they were, back with their little ball pens and whatever, put on that sad face once more, and moving around with those cars and things. If they get something, fine. If they don't get something, fine. But they were happy doing that, going back. And I watched this maybe for 4 or 5 times that the signal changed. And it was amazing to me of the two aspects. And that was not the learning. The learning I got was that the elder sister, who's the leader of this pack, she's probably reporting to big bosses who know what is the collection happening in Kerala and signal from all of this activity. She allowing them to enjoy themselves for 2 minutes, then going back at their jobs and their tasks to still do what they need to do, and then taking care of them. I think it was amazing for me that there was some leadership quality in that elder sister, allowing the kids to enjoy, but at the same time finish what their tasks were. And it was a 30 minutes, which was a learning for me at Tenabet Singh. So things to do. Learn something from the Lilliputians, like Deepak was sharing, others were sharing. There are always aspects that we can pick up. And as much as it is experiences which we put down as the power of ordinariness in the previous module, any one of you, please talk to us before the next session and share with us what it is. Then it is possible for us to moderate and curate and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to present something which is then of value to all of us in this audience. Please do share, and maybe Ram, at the end of this session, we will share our email and mobile, or Saurav, you could probably share, or maybe we will share it with you. Some of you here, you could note down, but Saurav, you could send our email, mobile,
sure,
to all the participants. Okay. Please
do
share.
Understood.
So that participant anecdotes will feature in every subsequent session. Ram?
The objective here in the Indic way is that as we learn, we saw this leadership of this girl, slightly elder to these two, of how she's getting them to do their work by giving them that break, allowing them to do something. We watch that, learn from that, and maybe apply that in our business, in our life. How do we internalize this? That is really why these anecdotes are being highlighted, so that the essence of it, do we actually make it part of the way we do things? Adapt it, but learn from it and make it part of our lives. I don't know if you have enough time, but there's one example I wanted to just quickly share about.
Yes, Ram, please.
About customer centricity. We all talk about customer is king, queen. We have to be customer centric. I had gone to E-Road. I have not spent like that time at E-Road, and I had to spend a night. So, in these small towns, I reach morning by train, you get a room for 24 hours. So after you get ready, went down, somebody told us, go to this restaurant for breakfast. There was this lady who was there at the cash counter, and there was this lady who was serving. And she said, where have you come from? Sit down, sit down. This is what we have. Served us food, smiling completely. That was not the lesson. We stayed a night. Next morning, before leaving, we went back there for breakfast. And she remembered us. oh, you are the guys who came from Chennai. Yesterday you guys had this. Today there's a special which you may not get in Chennai. I want you to try that. That is customer centricity. Remembering, recognizing, offering a difference. I thought Kotler couldn't have taught that as well as this lady did in practice. All with a smile, remembering that I thought was an amazing lesson to learn and hopefully implement in our business. So as you share your anecdotes with us, it'll be useful of the lesson you took away from there. Thanks, JK.
Thanks, Ram. So please do share. And Saurav, I think for all those who have registered, if you could send them our email and
Just
mobile.
Chat as somebody suggested. Just put it on the chat here.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah, somebody suggested that'll be a good thing. Yeah, they can keep note and please do call us or send us a mail and or send us a text message and we'll call back, because we are very keen to gather anecdotes which many of you would have experienced. Some of you may have recorded or registered, like what Deepak and some of the others shared with us. But some of you, when you think about it, you may say, hey, you know what? That was something which was valuable. And it is of great value to all of us for us to share. So that is learning from the Lilliputians as module 2 in every session. And we will come to the essence of this entire series. The essence of this entire series, whether it is via the power of ordinariness, or it is via learning from the Lilliputians, it is towards becoming superior. That is the objective. We are only taking ordinariness and that we can get inspired by what ordinary people do, or we can learn. And this learning, again, we are repeating, is either for business and profession or for personal life. It is not only value systems. We're not talking, this is all about being holy and being good people. No, it's not about that. It's learning many aspects which are of great value, whether in professional life or personal life. And so please do share that. And it's towards becoming superior that we are taking from the ordinary or taking from the Lilliputians. So I'm sure this question is there in everybody's minds. We are continuously coming back to this superior. So who is a superior person? Now, Ram and I discussed this. We do have something, but we don't want to straight away get into it and start defining who is a superior person. So we left it with it even in the introduction. Therefore, we said it's not compared to anybody, but it's compared only to ourselves. But that there are superior aspects in us. While that being so, we are very clear of the dimensions and the different aspects in which a superior person must build their own different aspects, and they will emerge as we keep discussing during this session and other sessions. And it will emerge whenever there is an example that we take, whether it is in the power of ordinariness or it is learning from the Lilliputians. Some of these will emerge. Then we will start to list out who the superior person is. But certainly the superior person, I want to connect up with the theme of our previous series. In the Power series, our underlying theme was readiness for life. And this readiness for life was life in all its ups and downs, in all its twists and turns. To handle it with equanimity, to be able to perform and achieve while all that is happening around us, and remain joyful and reduce all the disturbances that happen in our minds as various event situations and relationships are happening around us. That is still underlying. That is still underlying. And as we build those capabilities and abilities in ourselves, we are becoming superior. So I want to just say this: becoming superior is towards that performance, towards that achievement, towards joyous, towards ability to handle all the twists and turns and the ups and downs. Any comments now?
I think JK said it a little quickly, but in the previous sessions, we have said life is all about events, situations, relationships. And therefore, you know, every time how we handle an event or a situation, how is our relationship with people at work, at home, in the neighborhood, all of that. And therefore, when we start comparing our yesterday with our today and how we are moving to a better person tomorrow, that is the comparison in each of these events, situations, and relationships. And that is really the focus of learning from Lilliputians and then applying it, or from anywhere else, and applying it for managing event situations and relationships better.
So here is where we want each one of you to respond to the questions I want to put down. What were the superior aspects that you picked up or you found in the anecdotes in this session? You know, I want to just recollect. Ram shared about the Hados Road function. I shared about something that I saw my uncle do in Bombay. Now, Deepak shared some aspects about the train journey. Then I shared with you Tenambet signal. Ram shared with you what he experienced at Europe. So like that, whether it was from the Power of Ordinariness module or from learning from the Lilliputians, there can be more than one, but is there a superior aspect which came to your mind and you say, hey, you know what, that was good here. And then all of us then have something we can take from the anecdotes of this session. Yeah, Ashok.
Yeah. So to me, all these anecdotes highlight three things, and that's what I'm learning from this. It's a combination of observation, reflection, and willingness to learn. I think we've all seen these things happening. I mean, I've been at a equivalent of a 10-ambit signal, but generally I'll take out my mobile phone and check all my WhatsApp messages till my driver comes and then get into the car after it is fixed. You chose to look around to see what is going on. When you saw something, and I could have seen those two girls, and I could have said, oh, two girls trying to sell pens, and then moved on to the next thing. You chose to reflect on it and say what is going on. You chose to track them after the green light came. And then you are open-minded to say, is there something I can learn from this ordinary experience? And to me, that is the extraordinary takeaway from all that I've heard today, that ordinariness has a lot to contribute. It's happening all around us. We need to see it, we need to reflect on it, and we need to be open to benefiting from it without feeling that it is below our dignity. That's all that I can say.
Great comment, Ashok. I think that is the actual objective we are moving towards, and I'm so happy that you brought it into perspective. And that is the Joshua Bell experiment, trying to come up with saying, hey, there's so much of beauty in ordinary situations. Are we missing them? And I think you summarized it very well.
There is a jargon, Ashok, called mindfulness. That is highlighted a lot. That we are so busy, even when we have very little to do, that we are not mindful of our environment, of our surrounding, of the joy of this moment. Yeah. And we miss it. I don't know how many of us have enjoyed a sunrise or a sunset for a long, long time. Maybe we see it and we don't, reflect on it. But we have climbed up to some Tiger Point to go see some sunrise, and we miss it every morning right outside our window here. So that mindfulness, there's so many workshops around it nowadays. Just saying, this moment before it goes away, can we be just aware of what's happening and just enjoy that moment and maybe learn from it? But if nothing else, just be aware of what's happening around us is really what I think you were just saying. So thanks.
Anybody else who would like to share what they thought were superior aspects and anecdotes in this session?
Hi, this is Shekhar, JK and Ram.
Yeah, Shekhar.
Thanks for the great session. I think it's not often that we pause and reflect and go through these things. And I think simple things are very powerful, which is the theme of the session and which is what I'm discovering as I go through this. A couple of quick things. So I think to me, this is one of my mentors told me probably 30 years back, and it's coming back to me like a deja vu. And what this person said is, look, every time you meet somebody, you tend to evaluate and make judgments with whatever inherent bias you might have. So he said, next time you meet somebody, try to look for that one little thing that you don't have, which the person has, so that you can learn it. And that is your golden nugget, So I think to me, this is something similar where, whatever we observe, if we start looking for that one little thing that the situation or the person presents to us, which is like a little aha for us, because it's very easy to criticize and compare and say this is not okay. And that is what I'm looking at these examples as you presented. And I think it's coming out in a very nice way that we tend to normally do that for whatever reason, right? We like things to be perfect, or we expect certain things in a certain way and so on. And so we have to look for the little golden nugget of learning, which every situation, every person presents. And if you build on it, I think there is so much to learn from children, which is what some of us are observing now as we grow older, that there is. So I think I missed to unmute in the previous session, and I don't know if we have time, but there are two quick things when you talked about Lilliputians. I'll probably email it to you, but I've learned a lot when I did distribution from observing simple things like, I don't know if you know these tea shops where they have biscuits in the jars. And if someone has understood how, that distribution is something that an MBA couldn't teach me. And I realized, when you go talk to them and understand what they do, all that you spend 2 years learning in an MBA, you can observe that. And similarly, a lady selling flowers outside a temple, if you want to understand cash velocity, if you want to understand raising debt, you want to understand, whatever, right? Everything is out there. She borrows 100 rupees and goes to Coimbatore, maybe buys the flowers and comes and makes a sale for 200. And it's like amazing if you start putting that into perspective. And I do that from a work point of view. And I'll try to send these to you via email sometime. But I'm just thinking that this session was very good because it pulled us back into reality in terms of looking at this in a very different way. And I don't think it's very philosophical. I think it's, you can give it a philosophical thing, but it's very practical and useful in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day work life. Maybe as a personal reflection, it could sound philosophical, but I've learned a lot at work by actually spending time on the streets and talking to traders, and when you go for sales calls and all of that, which an Ivy League cannot teach people. So that I think is quite powerful.
Absolutely, Shekhar. Would love to hear from you. So please do send us a mail or call one of us, and we want some aspect of yours to feature in our upcoming sessions. So please
Absolutely.
do.
I'll do that. Yeah, it's a privilege. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'll do.
Okay, anybody else who has something to say, hey, this is what I picked up as a superior aspect from any of the anecdotes? Anybody else would like to share with us?
Hi, this is Deepak again, Deepak Chodia.
Yes.
So, yeah, just maybe, I guess, just not an anecdote, just taking it forward, the concept of mindfulness. I think one of the biggest distraction currently we have is our mobile phone. which is obviously you have a lot of use, but then I think that is the biggest distraction we can ever have. So I think a mobile detoxation or just trying to limit the the use of mobile, the will enable us to be more present in the situation which we are in. I've been actually following that for like 2 months, and I think I see a good amount of at least the less level of stress which I can feel, and which will give me a little more comfort to be ready again for tomorrow. I think that's one thing we should try to do. Limit the use of mobile. Yeah, I know mobile has become a necessity, but then even if you reply your email 15 minutes later or half an hour later, they're not going to have much of an impact. That one thought I thought it's good to share, and I think we should try doing it as in when relevant for each of us.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to move forward. I want to pause and say, why have I used this oyster to represent this superior person? And I want to share some of my thoughts with you. Of course, most of you would know that the oyster starts to work on this only when an irritant enters the oyster. To take care of the irritant, which could be some external particle, whatever, it creates a fluid to combat that irritant. And it keeps building and building on that. And it builds and builds on that to combat and take care of the irritant. And that is how that pearl is getting formed. Like that, in each one of us, there are different aspects that trouble us. We have referred to them in our earlier series as disturbances. We will revisit them in subsequent sessions in this module, in the last module towards becoming superior. But therefore, to combat those irritants, it is we who have to come up. And those aspects are within us. It's internal to us. And whether it is those fluids and other aspects through which the oyster is able to create the pearl, we are creating the pearl, which is the superior aspects in us. We earlier referred to them as the Indic muscles, which we can build. But all of that is the same concept, but building those so that the pearl is available to us, and this pearl is available to us for performance, success, and joy. Now,
No, JK.
so we want to take you through some aspects, and this was another amazing thing for me. And I found philosophers in different cultures, different civilizations, all of them in that 1000 BC, okay, let's say 3000 years ago, in some form, 2500 to 3000 years ago, different civilizations, different cultures, different geographies. They've all thought about this particular aspect. This particular aspect meaning about leading our lives, and to be able to lead our lives where both activities and therefore performance and happiness are addressed. And when I read some of their thoughts and their observations and what they've addressed, to me, it's very clear nothing has changed in 3,500 years. Beyond the fact that, yeah, we have some technology, we have some luxuries and stuff, but lives, if you define, lives of individuals, lives of us as families, lives of us being part of society, our ambitions, our drives, our relationships, they're all the same. So I want to take in every session some philosopher and some aspect which will again give us that same, I would say, lovely gems from which we can address towards becoming superior. And this time I want to take Confucius, Chinese philosopher around 550 BC. So which is again about 2,500 years ago. And he has defined a superior person. And according to him, I will share 2 or 3 of his observations and quotes, very powerful. There are 4 things from which the superior person is entirely free. He has no foregone conclusions, no arbitrary predeterminations, no obstinacy, and no egoism.
I think this is a challenge for all of us, I think. we are judgmental, so we are already arrived. You know, somebody, I think Shekhar was mentioning about meeting somebody. And when we meet somebody, the first thought that comes to our mind is this person going to be useful to me or not? That's what we term as networking nowadays. What can I get out of something? So there is already an expectation. So therefore, we don't really understand that person. And so we are judgmental. There is expectation. And then our ego, of course, is something that comes in our way quite often. So yes, and my way or highway is something we all are used to as leaders. It is my way or highway. I know best. So yes, JK, yes.
I'll take the next one from him. He dislikes no one. He covets nothing. What can he do but what is good? But this I found interesting. And this connects with, I would say, the learnings from the anecdotes which different people shared in the session. If doing what is to be done, be made the first business, and success a secondary consideration, it's not this the way of the superior person. I think, Ram, what do you think? I mean, or anybody else who has a comment to offer in terms of each is defining a superior aspect. Even, I mean, I'm sharing it again, even if we do it only once, it was only on one occasion, it is a superior aspect and it is an aspect of a superior person, an act of a superior person.
I think in an earlier session we have spoken, success is an effect. And that effect can be improved, become more predictable if our actions are superior. How do we get the quality of our action superior every time? And that is really what we are saying. By watching, observing, we learn from others, we learn from ourselves, and then we practice. So normally we are distracted by our goals, by our aspirations at the time of acting. It's not that we should not have all that. And here it's a beautiful way he says that if we focus on the quality of the action, success will follow and it'll happen. It's a secondary consideration. It's an effect. Let's focus on the cause, which is, it's like that story where we are all waiting and complaining and somebody came and just helped and laid all the table. And so we had great lunch. We could have sat there and not had anything. So success is an effect. Let's focus on the cause, great action. I think this is great, JK.
And I want to mention this, we normally do this when we start the session and during the series. Lots of, the he includes the she. The he and she, therefore, is only that it's a person. So that's something we should always keep in mind. The way of the superior man is threefold. Virtuous, he is free from anxieties. Wise, he is free from perplexities. And bold, he is free from fear. And we are going to address all of this again, because when we move into a greater understanding of the superior person, we want to address it in two ways. What is it that we need to let go? And what is it that we need to acquire? And many of the aspects that Confucius mentioned is going to come up in terms of what are we free from what do we need to let go, and what we need to acquire. So we have some inputs from Confucius towards becoming superior, and every session we will share some of the thoughts from some of, not necessarily philosophers. We may share from Aesop's fables, we may share from Arabian Nights, we may share from African lore, we will share from various other things, but it's all about people and civilizations and what they have taught. So towards becoming superior, we are going to cover what is our base nature, a better nature and a higher nature, all of this not now, but as we move into our next sessions, and what to let go and what to acquire, and all these specifics from the next session onwards. I want to summarize to say the entire series is focused on becoming superior, and becoming superior compared to ourselves. Why become superior? By becoming superior, we earlier had another example which I want to share with you in this context. We refer to it saying there are two types of people or personalities. I don't want to say people, even in me or in any one of us, there could be both these personalities. One we call the perfumed personality. The perfumed personality needs perfume to mask that bad odor, which is part of me and part of my personality. So there is a perfumed personality, and because of the perfume, maybe I mask the bad odor, bad breath, which is part of my personality. The second we are referring to as the fragrant personality. So in fragrance, it is inherent. I don't need to put on perfume to mask, but the odor itself goes away. And I want all of us to keep this in mind, that as we move towards becoming superior, we wish to move towards the fragrant personality.
That it is intrinsic. It's a way of life. That's really what we are saying. We make it part of our life. It's intrinsic. It's not something that we put on outside as a facade, that it is intrinsic. It's our nature. That's really what we want to do. That's why base nature, better nature. That is really our true personality. That's what, and how do we make that a habit? All these behaviors. Back to you, JK.
So we will specifics in the next session. Thank you very much.